TV host Stephen Colbert and tech billionaire Elon Musk clash in explosive late-show interview. What started as playful banter quickly turned into the most shocking confrontation in late-night television history, leaving the audience speechless and social media ablaze. The studio lights were extra bright on The Late Show last night, but not as bright as the sparks that flew between host Stephen Colbert and his guest, tech mogul Elon Musk. What was supposed to be a friendly interview to discuss Musk's latest projects quickly became the talk of the internet for all the wrong reasons. The evening started normally enough. The Late Show band played their upbeat intro music as Stephen Colbert danced onto the stage, greeted by thunderous applause from the excited audience. After his opening monologue poking fun at the day's political news, Colbert sat at his desk, shuffling his note cards. "Tonight we have a very special guest," Colbert announced with his signature smile. "He's the man who wants to send us all to Mars, make our cars drive themselves, and put chips in our brains. Please welcome the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, Elon Musk." The audience erupted in applause as Musk walked onto the stage, waving awkwardly. He was wearing his usual black t-shirt and blazer combo. The two men shook hands, and Musk settled into the guest chair, looking a bit stiff but smiling. "Welcome back to the show, Elon," Colbert said warmly. "It's been a while since we've had you here." "Thanks for having me, Stephen," Musk replied. "Always good to be here." The interview started pleasantly enough, with Colbert asking about SpaceX's recent rocket launch. Musk explained how his company was revolutionizing space travel and making progress toward establishing a colony on Mars. "So let me get this straight," Colbert said, leaning forward in his chair. "You want to send people to a planet with no air, no water, and temperatures that would freeze your blood solid. And you think that's a good vacation spot?" The audience laughed, and Musk chuckled along, used to jokes about his ambitious Mars plans. "Well, it's not exactly a vacation spot yet," Musk replied. "But eventually, we'll transform Mars into a second home for humanity. It's about making life multiplanetary to ensure our species survives." Colbert nodded, but there was a glint in his eye that suggested he wasn't done yet. "I've always wondered, Elon, why Mars? Is Earth not good enough for you anymore? Did Earth hurt your feelings?" More laughter from the audience, a bit louder this time. Musk's smile tightened slightly. "It's not about Earth not being good enough," Musk explained. "It's about creating a backup plan for humanity. If something catastrophic happens here—" "Like what? All your Tesla self-driving cars deciding to overthrow humanity?" Colbert interrupted with a smirk. The audience roared with laughter, but Musk's smile was starting to fade. The joke hit a nerve, especially given the recent controversies surrounding Tesla's autopilot system. "Our self-driving technology is actually incredibly safe," Musk said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "The statistics show that autopilot reduces accidents by—" "Statistics?" Colbert interrupted again, his eyebrows raised in mock surprise. "Are these the same statistics that predicted Tesla stock would reach to-the-moon levels? Because I checked this morning, and it seems like your stock is taking a SpaceX rocket in the wrong direction." There was an audible "ooh" from the audience. The atmosphere in the studio was shifting. What had started as friendly banter was taking a sharper edge. Musk's face reddened slightly. Tesla's stock had indeed been struggling in recent weeks, dropping nearly 15% after a disappointing quarterly report. "Market fluctuations are normal," Musk said, visibly trying to maintain his composure. "Tesla is still one of the most valuable car companies in the world, and we're continuing to innovate." "Innovate is one word for it," Colbert cut in, now fully committed to the bit. "Another might be overpromise. Remember that Cybertruck reveal where the unbreakable windows shattered? Or the robot that was just a guy in a spandex suit? Or how about those tunnels that were supposed to revolutionize transportation but ended up being regular tunnels with Teslas in them?" The audience was a mix of nervous laughter and shocked gasps now. Colbert was known for his sharp wit, but he rarely went after guests this directly. The camera cut to Musk, whose forced smile had completely vanished. "Those projects are all making progress," Musk said stiffly. "The Cybertruck is now in production, our humanoid robot prototype is functioning, and the Boring Company is boring. In more ways than one?" Colbert finished with a chuckle. Musk was now visibly upset, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. The playful interview had turned into something else entirely. Behind the scenes, producers were frantically gesturing, wondering if they should cut to a commercial break. "You know, Stephen," Musk said, his voice now cool and controlled, "it's easy to sit behind a desk and make jokes about people who are actually trying to solve humanity's biggest problems. What exactly are you doing to help the future of our species?" The studio went quiet. Colbert's smile faltered for just a moment before he recovered. "Well, I'm entertaining people during what might be humanity's final days on Earth before your AI robots take over," Colbert quipped, doubling down. "Speaking of which, I hear your Neuralink brain chip is finally being tested in humans. Is that because the monkeys all ran away screaming?" This reference to controversial reports about animal testing at Neuralink was the breaking point. Musk's expression darkened completely. "That's completely unfair and you know it," Musk said, his voice rising slightly. "The work we're doing at Neuralink could help millions of people with neurological conditions. We follow all ethical guidelines, and those reports were grossly exaggerated by people who what? Who actually care about ethics," Colbert shot back. "Like the ethics of firing half your workforce at X, via email? Or the ethics of promising full self-driving cars year after year, while people are paying thousands for features that don't exist yet?" The tension in the studio was now palpable. The audience had gone from laughing to uncomfortable silence. Behind the cameras, producers were frantically signaling to Colbert to ease up, but he seemed caught up in the moment. Musk sat perfectly still, his jaw clenched tight. The tech billionaire was known for his unpredictable behavior on social media, but seeing him this angry in person was something else entirely. "You know what, Stephen?" Musk finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I came here to talk about the incredible things we're building that could help humanity's future, not to be a punching bag for cheap jokes." Colbert seemed to realize he might have gone too far, but instead of backing down, he went for one more jab. "Well, maybe that's the problem, Elon. Maybe the things you're building aren't as incredible as you think they are. Maybe, just maybe, the Emperor of Mars has no clothes," the audience gasped. Musk's eyes narrowed, and for a moment it looked like he might say something truly explosive. The air in the studio was electric with tension, everyone wondering what would happen next. And that's when Elon Musk did something no one expected. He stood up. The simple act sent shockwaves through the studio. Guests on The Late Show weren't supposed to stand up in the middle of an interview. It broke the unspoken rules of late-night television. The audience fell completely silent as Musk towered over the seated Colbert. "You know what, Stephen?" Musk said, his voice eerily calm. "I've sat through enough of this. I didn't come here to be your punching bag." Colbert's confident smirk wavered. For the first time that evening, he looked genuinely surprised. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't how interviews on his show were supposed to go. "Whoa, easy there, Elon," Colbert said, trying to regain control of the situation with humor. "I'm just doing my job. Making jokes is kind of what I do for a living." "Making jokes is fine," Musk replied, still standing. "But there's a difference between jokes and what you're doing. You invited me here just to mock everything I've worked for." The camera crew exchanged nervous glances. This was live television, and things were spiraling out of control. The director frantically signaled to cut to a commercial break, but Colbert held up his hand, stopping them. This was too good for television. This was real. "Look, Elon, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here," Colbert said, his tone softening slightly. "Why don't you sit back down, and we can talk about—" "Talk about what?" Musk interrupted. "More jokes about Tesla's stock price? Do you know how many thousands of people work at Tesla? People whose livelihoods depend on the company? And you're sitting here laughing about the stock dropping." The audience was frozen, watching the drama unfold like a car crash in slow motion. Nobody dared to make a sound. "I know you think I'm just some rich guy with crazy ideas," Musk continued, gaining momentum. "But I'm trying to solve problems that nobody else is even touching. Climate change, sustainable energy, making humans a multiplanetary species. What exactly are you doing besides sitting behind that desk making fun of people who are actually trying to make a difference?" Colbert's face flushed. He wasn't used to being on the receiving end of criticism, especially not on his own show. "Well, Colbert started, but Musk wasn't finished. "And yes, we've had setbacks. Yes, the Cybertruck windows broke during that demo. Yes, Tesla's stock goes up and down. That's what happens when you're trying to do something that's never been done before. You fail. You learn. You try again. But, at least I'm trying." A few audience members began to clap, but they quickly stopped when they realized they were alone. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Colbert's producer was now standing just off camera, making frantic cut gestures. They needed to go to commercial. This was getting out of hand, but Colbert wasn't about to back down on his own show. He stood up too, meeting Musk at eye level. "You know what, Elon? You're right. You are trying. Trying to convince the world that you're Tony Stark when really you're just another billionaire with a Twitter account." "I'm sorry, an X account," Colbert said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "The difference is that Tony Stark actually finished his projects." There was a collective gasp from the audience. This was no longer a friendly interview gone wrong. This was a full-blown confrontation. "You want to talk about setbacks?" Colbert continued, now fully committed to the fight. "Let's talk about the thousands of workers you've laid off. Let's talk about the promises you've made and broken. Let's talk about how you called that rescue diver a horrible name when he criticized your submarine idea." Musk's face darkened. "That was years ago, and I apologized for that. But you're proving my point. You're not interested in a fair conversation. You invited me here to ambush me." "I invited you here to have a conversation like I do with all my guests," Colbert fired back. "But most of my guests don't have such thin skin." The producer was now practically jumping up and down off camera. This had gone far beyond anything they'd prepared for. Musk reached up and began removing his microphone. "What are you doing?" Colbert asked, genuine surprise in his voice. "I'm done with this interview," Musk said flatly. "I can't do this anymore." "You can't just walk off the set," Colbert said, his tone a mix of disbelief and anger. "Watch me," Musk replied, dropping the microphone on the chair behind him. The sound of it hitting the cushion echoed through the dead-silent studio. But Colbert wasn't going to let him have the last word. As Musk turned to leave, the host delivered his final blow. "Running away, Elon. Is that what you do when you can't control the narrative? When you can't fire everyone who disagrees with you? When you can't tweet your way out of a problem?" Musk froze mid-step. The audience held their breath. For a moment it seemed like he might turn around and say something truly explosive. Instead, he simply said, without turning back, "I think this interview shows exactly who you really are, Stephen." Colbert laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And what's that, Elon? Someone who doesn't worship at the altar of Elon Musk?" "No," Musk said, finally turning to face Colbert one last time. "Someone who tears others down because it's easier than building something yourself." With that, Musk walked off the stage, leaving Colbert standing alone in front of millions of viewers. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Nobody knew what to do. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't how The Late Show was supposed to work. After what felt like an eternity, Colbert adjusted his tie and looked directly into the camera. "Well, folks, I guess Elon has left the building. Maybe he's off to Mars a little earlier than planned." His attempt at humor fell flat in the stunned studio. The director finally managed to cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Within seconds, clips of the confrontation were already hitting social media. Colbert vs. Musk started trending almost immediately. In the commercial break, chaos erupted backstage. Producers huddled around Colbert, who was still visibly angry. Musk was nowhere to be seen, having already left the building with his entourage. "What the hell was that?" the show's executive producer demanded, his face pale with shock. "That was Elon Musk showing his true colors," Colbert replied defensively, but there was uncertainty in his voice. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Meanwhile, in the green room, Musk's team was frantically trying to do damage control. PR advisors were already drafting statements. Social media managers were monitoring the explosion of reactions online. As the commercial break neared its end, a stage manager approached Colbert. "We're back on in 30 seconds. What's the plan?" Colbert straightened his jacket and took a deep breath. "The show must go on," he said simply. The on-air light flashed, and the cameras focused on Colbert, who was now sitting alone at his desk. The audience was unusually quiet, still processing what they had just witnessed. "Welcome back to The Late Show," Colbert said, his voice slightly strained despite his attempt to sound normal. "As you may have noticed, our guest Elon Musk has decided to leave early. I guess he had a rocket to catch." A few nervous laughs came from the audience, but most remained silent, sensing the unusual tension. "We'll continue with our scheduled program," Colbert continued, shuffling his note cards. "Our next guest," but before he could announce who was coming next, the studio door burst open. Everyone turned to look, and gasps filled the room as Elon Musk walked back onto the set. He wasn't supposed to come back. This wasn't how things were done. The producers behind the cameras looked at each other in panic. This was completely off script, and nobody knew what was about to happen. Musk walked directly to the guest chair, picked up the microphone he had discarded minutes earlier, and clipped it back on his shirt. Then he sat down, looking straight at Colbert. "I thought you left," Colbert said, genuinely surprised. "I almost did," Musk replied. "But then I realized something. Walking away doesn't solve anything. It never has." The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "Look, Stephen," Musk continued, his tone calmer than before. "We could both leave this interview angry. You could keep mocking my projects. I could storm off in a huff. And tomorrow, social media would have a field day with it. But what would that accomplish?" Colbert looked uncertain, clearly thrown off by this unexpected turn of events. This wasn't the angry billionaire from moments ago. "I came here to talk about important things," Musk said. "About projects that, yes, sometimes fail spectacularly. But they fail because we're trying to do something that matters. And if all we do is tear each other down, then none of it matters." Colbert studied Musk's face for a moment, then nodded, slowly. "You're right," he admitted, surprising everyone, including himself. "I went too far," the audience murmured in surprise. Stephen Colbert rarely backed down. "I think we both did," Musk acknowledged. "But that's what happens when egos get involved. And let's face it, neither of us has a small one." That got a genuine laugh from the audience, breaking some of the tension. "Fair point," Colbert said with a small smile. "So where do we go from here?" "How about we start over?" Musk suggested. "But this time, let's talk about the real stuff. The challenges, the failures, the reasons behind what we're trying to do." Colbert considered this for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Elon, let's do that." He turned to the audience. "Folks, you're witnessing something that doesn't happen often on television. A real conversation. And that's exactly what followed. For the next 10 minutes, the show transformed into something The Late Show had rarely been before. Instead of quick jokes and rehearsed answers, Colbert and Musk had an honest discussion. Musk talked about how the Cybertruck's window breaking was a complete disaster that kept me up for nights, but also how failure was a necessary part of innovation. He admitted that Tesla's stock volatility was concerning, but explained how the company was focused on long-term goals rather than quarterly profits. Colbert, for his part, asked thoughtful questions about the ethics of AI development and space exploration without the usual punchline waiting at the end. "The thing about Mars," Musk explained, "isn't that Earth isn't good enough. It's that having all of humanity on one planet is like having all your data on one hard drive. Eventually, that drive will fail." "That's actually a really good point," Colbert admitted. When the segment finally ended, the audience gave a standing ovation. Not for the drama or the confrontation, but for the rare moment of authenticity they had just witnessed. As the show cut to commercial, Colbert and Musk shook hands. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" Musk asked with a slight smile. "Honestly, it was better television than what I had planned," Colbert replied. Behind the scenes, the producers were both relieved and amazed. What had started as a disaster had transformed into one of the most compelling segments in the show's history. After the show ended, both men went their separate ways, Colbert to his dressing room, Musk to his waiting car. But the conversation they'd started continued online, where the hashtag #Colbert-Musk Showdown was already trending worldwide. Videos of the confrontation spread like wildfire across every social media platform. Some people sided with Colbert, others with Musk, but most were simply amazed by what they had seen. Two powerful men who started with conflict and ended with respect. The next morning, Colbert woke up to find his phone flooded with notifications. The Late Show had its highest ratings in years. News outlets everywhere were talking about the interview that redefined late-night television. Musk, meanwhile, shared a simple post on X. "Had an interesting time on a Colbert Late Show last night. Sometimes the best conversations start with disagreement." Colbert responded with his own post. "Thanks, Elon Musk, for teaching me that good TV isn't always about getting laughs. Sometimes it's about getting real." Within days, the full interview had been viewed over 50 million times online. Media commentators analyzed every word, every gesture. Some called it staged, but most recognized the raw authenticity that couldn't be faked. 1 week later, The Late Show featured a segment where Colbert addressed the viral moment. "Last week, something unexpected happened on this very stage," he told his audience. "What started as a train wreck ended up being a masterclass in how to disagree without being disagreeable. And I learned something important. Sometimes the best jokes aren't jokes at all. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just listen." The moment changed both men, in small but significant ways. Colbert became known for occasionally setting aside his comic persona to have real conversations with guests. Musk, for his part, showed a willingness to engage with critics rather than dismiss them. Media commentators began referring to having a Colbert-Musk moment whenever public figures transformed conflict into constructive dialogue. As for the viewers, they got something rare in today's world. A reminder that behind the personas and the performances, there are real people capable of growth and understanding. In the end, what could have been just another viral confrontation became something more meaningful. It became a moment when entertainment transcended itself and offered a glimpse of something authentic. And in a world of carefully crafted images and rehearsed responses, that was the most surprising plot twist of all. The Late Show's ratings remained elevated for months afterward. Other talk show hosts tried to recreate the magic of the confrontation, but none succeeded. You couldn't manufacture that kind of genuine human moment. The episode won an Emmy for Outstanding Variety Talk Series, with the citation specifically mentioning the transformation of conflict into connection. A year later, when Musk returned to The Late Show, there was none of the previous tension. Instead, There was a mutual respect that made for an even more compelling interview. When Colbert asked tough questions about Musk's latest controversial decisions, Musk answered thoughtfully rather than defensively. "You know," Musk said toward the end of that interview, "I think our last conversation changed something important." "What's that?" Colbert asked. "It showed that it's possible to start as opponents and end as something closer to friends," Musk replied. "And maybe that's something the world needs more of right now." As the audience applauded, Colbert nodded in agreement. "I couldn't have said it better myself, and he meant it."